Hello everybody, my name is Mary. I'm a Kazaz independent consultant. My ID number is 110293. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a partial die cutting card without using a die cutter. Now I don't have a die that suits this heart, so I'm going to show you how to get the same effect but without using a die cutter. And it's just a very quick and simple technique. It's a one-layered card. When you open it up, you can see where the partial die cutting is down here. So you will have the other half of this cut out here. And you would just write your message here. So when you send it, you don't see that. But it lays flat, very simple, and I think an easy way to get a bit more out of your stamps. We'll also be doing third generational stamping with the same ink. So that's first generation, that's second generation, and that's third generation. So let's get started. Now you're going to need just one A5 size white paper, and as always all the details of the products that I use and the codes will be listed in the description below. So an A5 size cardstock, which will be your card base. You need just a piece of scratch paper to do your generational stamping. Today I'm using the Ranger Violet archival ink. You will also need your archival jet black ink, and that is for your greeting. And if you want to put your stamp, I always put my homemade for you because you're worth it stamp on the back. The greeting, the saying that I'm going to be using today is, why try to fit in when you were born to stand out, which I think is very fitting for a card that is popping out. And the three hearts, which are a set as well. Very gorgeous silhouette stamp with the image of flowers in that, so wonderful stamp set. And these stamps are all from our January release that came out on the 22nd of January. Just a very beautiful stamp set. You're also going to need a small rhinestone, a medium rhinestone, a medium sized button, and two small sized buttons. You may not be able to see those. We will need our glossy accents, pair of scissors, tweezers, your bone scorer. We will need your multi-tool with the blade on it, and that's how we will be cutting out those hearts. A pencil, ruler, and a rubber. You also need a surface. Your cutting mat needs to be one of those self-healing, or not so much a self-healing, but you need to make sure your mat can be cut. This is a self-healing mat, which just makes it a little easier to actually cut around. So let's get going on how we make this card. Now, first of all, you just need to fold your card as you would in half to make your standard size card, which fits into your C6 envelope. And then we will be folding this flap back, but we will do that at the last stage, because if you fold it first, when you go to stamp, you're not going to get a good impression down where you folded it. So we actually stamp on the inside of this card, and you need to find your halfway mark. Now I did mine halfway marks in the inch marks because I found it was it worked out quite well. So it's only 2 1/16. So just make a little tick mark on either end, because you're just going to draw a light pencil line down and join them up, and then you'll rub that out later. So you do this so that you can find the halfway mark of your card, because you're going to stamp half of it. We'll stamp fully onto it, but half of it will actually then be the part that you cut out, which sits out from your card. So the first heart that you stamp is going to be the first generation. Now this stamp set, it actually sits offset. So to be able to find your halfway mark, I've actually made 2 little check marks here on the top and bottom of this stamp, so I know that that's my halfway mark, and then I can line it up a lot better. And this, you could do any stamp set with this. This is just the one I happen to have on hand at the time. And it is a lovely, lovely stamp set. I really love all of the new products out of that January new release. So remember, you're stamping on the inside of your card. And I'm just lining up my check marks. You know, if you are slightly off that centre, it's not going to be disastrous either. Just let it sit there, let the ink come into the cardstock. Oh, beautiful. I love this stamp set. It is just gorgeous. And I've lined that up pretty well, so I'm pretty happy with that. So then the second one is still using the violet ink, but you're going to stamp off and you're going to do a second generation stamp on that smaller one, which is the next size down. So just stamp off. Now, as you can see, I didn't quite stamp off fully there, and if you don't go back and redo this, you will have one dark spot on your second generation stamping. So just be aware that you do stamp that off properly. That's a lot better. And again, just find your halfway mark. It's not as bad on this one. I can pretty much work it out. And you're just stamping down below that second one. And that's then your second generation. So then your last one in this stamp set is your tiny one. It's the third generation stamping. So again, when you're stamping off, make sure that second generation one off is good, and then the next one, and then your third one is going to be stamped on your card stock. I'm just lining up your centres again. Perfect. So first generation, second generation, and third. Sorry, I might have been out of shot then. First generation, second and third generation stamping. And you can see here that I'm not quite on that centre. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't. So don't go getting too worried if you can't get that. Now, at this stage is the best time to fold this before you go and cut it. It's a lot harder to cut it when you've it's a lot harder to fold it if you've already done your cuts. So this side just comes back to, which essentially is your back part of your card, just up to that fold line that we did earlier. And just do a good, make sure you've got the other side. And we will go back over these score lines in that because it does make it, you need to get them nice and crisp so your card does sit down properly. Right, so now that's the front half of our card that we see, and this is the half that we're going to cut out. So because I don't have a die that suits this, we're just going to use our blade and cut around this image up to that fold mark that we just made. Now when you're cutting stuff that is got a curve on it, do it in little sections and just move your card as you go along, keeping your blade in that groove, and just take your time with it. There's no need to rush it, and just keep working your way around the outline of the stamp. And then you get to the point that you can then just come straight down on that line. And if you're not real steady, you know, with doing this, like I said, just take your time. There's no need to rush this step here, and that will just pop that out. And then so just go and do that with all the others. Remembering, just keep your craft knife in, and make sure you've got a really sharp blade, because if you're trying to do this with a blade that is blunt, you're just going to tear the paper and it's not going to really come out well. So just do it in little stages until you get to that last little point down here, and just bring it down to the score line. Don't go past the score line. So this is what the die would do if you had a matching die. This is what effectively that die would do, is to partially cut up to the score line. So I've adapted this from a YouTube that I saw on partial die cutting, and I've just made it so that I can do it with my craft knife. So that's all you need to do. That's very easy to do. Now when you do use a craft knife, you might find that the edge along here might get a little bit rigid, might have a little bit standing up. Just pop your bone folder around that, and that will just push everything back into place. Now you do also want to push this score line here back down, because we don't need that score line. You don't really need to have it prominent. So just again, get your bone folder and push it back down. It's not going to completely go away, but it will go down to a reasonably flat level. And then pop those, make sure they pop out, and that's your partial die cutting. So then just go back over these ones, because these are the ones that you do want to be nice and crisp. And that's going to make sure your card sits nice and flat. There we go. So that's the back end of it there, flicking out, and that's the front. Very easy to do, as you can see. Now all I did to finish this card off was I did not use a pad with these, the felt pads and the ink blending tool. I just simply just grabbed the ink pad and just went over those edges. You only want to have it come just a very faint kind of edge, just to break up all that white, and just flick it like you would normally the other edges. Very quick. These cards are, you know, you can make when you've got 5 minutes to spare, because they literally all take you 5 minutes, and then you've got them on hand when you know, an occasion arises that you want to give somebody a card, and that's all you need to do there. Now the greeting goes down here on the bottom right and just fills in that space nicely there. And I thought that was a very appropriate greeting or saying, given that the card kind of does pop out. So all I'm doing here, line up this saying, because it's all lined up on one side there for the wording, I've just lined my acrylic block up on a line, so that then I can just, and excuse my head if that gets in the way, I can just line up that edge of the saying against another line, and then you know that that's going to be straight. And you can test this out on your scratch paper by just lining up your scratch paper on a line, up on this top line here, and I'm going to stamp into that corner, and then you're just lining this edge up with another edge on your mat, and then that should always, oh, I've gone off, oh, just got it on there. So that, you know, that essentially makes sure that your greeting or your saying is going to be straight. So we'll try that now on the real thing. So I know my stamp is straight on the acrylic block, and then we will line up our card onto a line here, and we will line up the edge onto another line, and there you go, voila. So that's lined up pretty good. And so all that really is left to do is to embellish your card. So on this card here, I just used my buttons and my rhinestones, and I've just used my glossy accents to put those on with. Now I do have a pair of tweezers there, and that is more to do with the little embellishments, you know, your buttons. You can pick up the bigger ones anyway, you can pick up this with your fingers. Don't need a lot of glossy accents. And then just pick them up and set them down. Do have a little bit of wriggle room on these if you need to move them around. Another one. Another one was at the top here. And you can embellish these however you want. This is just how I did the one I'm showing you today. No hard and fast rule when it comes to embellishments. It's what you like, what your recipient might like. And these, you know, you could make a bunch of these as well. Put them in card sets and just use different sayings out of that card set, stamp set, sorry, and just use different ink colours just to mix that up a little bit. So these little rhinestones are sticky bling. So they already have a backing on them, so you just cut them off and plonk him down there. Whoops. Not quite dry. There we go. And there we have it. A very quick, easy, simple, but beautiful card with that beautiful card stamp set that came out in January. And this saying here, it comes with a bunch of other ones. I think there's about 8 or so sayings in that. So very quick and easy. And my little stamp that I said that I stamp on the back of all my cards is also another beautiful Kazaz saying. And on my back here I've got T for top, so I know which way it's got to go up. And I stamped this on all of my cards. And it just says, handmade for you because you're worth it. And your recipient will just love that, and it just gives it that little personal touch. So there we go, partial die cutting without using a die cutter. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. See you next time. Thank you.